You could have heard this episode 48 hours early on our Patreon, patreon.com/indieheadspodcast. For joining us for as low as $1 a month, you'll receive episodes early and gain access to our Discord server. All of our upcoming episodes will be up on our Patreon feed 48 hours before it hits our public podcast feeds. But if you're hearing this via our Patreon feed, we thank you so much for your support. We especially want to thank our Real Ones patrons, including Becca Etienne, Georgia Mikowski, Alex Grishmanoff, Baby Buko, Josiah Duncan, Jenna LaFleur, Grant in the Back of My Dragula, Pablo Escobar's Hippos, Jackson Christ, Sandy Nemo, Alan Souvenir, Max Kapazinski, Mark Barry, Aaron Hillsamer, Darian Fisher, Garros420, Cal50, Dudu Ass, Chris Wade, Jacqueline Kadaga, Alec Felder, Jake Wald, Eraserhead Baby, Max, Dylan, Waffle113, and Maze Farms. To become a real one, consider supporting us for $5 a month on Patreon, or receive bonus episodes every month and get a shout out at the top of the pod. Anyways, though, enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, this is part 2 of our episode going over some Q1 2022 releases. This was recorded all in one session, not initially planned to be a 2-part episode, but it ended up being really long, so, you know, that's what it is. So hey, a bit of a rough transition, but hey, let's get back into it right about now. Bam. Next record, you said it was a big time pop record. This next one, Jackie.
Oh, I know. I said coming up soon.
She was referencing a later one, not this one.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's why. Okay, I was thinking it was a weird burial.
You thought I was making a hilarious joke. No, the connection I was gonna make this one is that we were just talking about press photos. A new burial press photo dropped finally. He's just, and it's so funny because it's like after years of hiding behind anonymity and then having one very morose picture of him. He has a mask on, but he's outside and he's kind of smiling and he's got his arms out. He's like, "Hey, I'm Burial, guys." This is Burial's Antidawn EP. It's technically an EP, but really the only reason why it's called an EP is because he doesn't want to drop another album, because when he finally does drop quote unquote Burial LP3, there's going to be so much pandemonium and like expectations on it. And specifically with this project, I understand why he did not want to make this an album, because it is like like this is Black Diamond difficulty Burial. This is my friend Cal50, who I mentioned a lot on this podcast. Love Cal50, love you, buddy.
Friend of the show.
Cal50 has been getting really into Burial recently after being aware of Burial for a very long time and never checking it out, and then he listened to the self-titled and Untrue and some of the EPs and was like, "Yo, what the fuck? Everyone has been copying this guy for 20 years." And it's like, yeah, everyone has been jacking Burial swag. They copied his whole damn flow, every bar, word for word, in the words of Soulja Boy. But now Burial has like evolved beyond the kind of two-step garage formula and is like deconstructing it. And this is the most ambient album that Burial has ever made. It is 40 minutes long. It's like 6 tracks, I want to say. And it is the most pared back, deliberately, like, not just ambient, like, it intentionally is resisting kind of catharsis in a lot of ways. And the closest that this album, at one point, there's one section of one song where, like, he teases you with like the world's tiniest kick drum, and he's like, "Hey, what if this built up to something? LOL, just kidding, never mind, it dissipates back into the ether." Like, this is if you're new to Burial, do not start with this EP. You're gonna be like, "What is this? Why is this sample just playing for 4 minutes over some vinyl crackle and like a couple of faint synthesizers?" But like, if you're the kind of person that like your favorite Burial songs are the interludes and you love the songs on the original, like, Burial's interludes are the greatest interludes of all time on any artist's work, I think, ever. And it's because they simultaneously don't feel superfluous, but they feel like the essential moments of the album where it taps into this specific, like, vague sense of mood and place that is just like impossible to put into words without either being a really talented writer or sounding like a jackass. But like I just think that songs like In McDonald's and some of the interludes from the first album are like some of my favorite songs of all time, even though they're like a minute long. And this EP slash album slash whatever you want to call it, Antidawn, is like the first time he has tapped into that feeling and that kind of structureless form for his music in a full length mode. And I think the way that this album builds over time, even though it is resisting catharsis, and the way that New Love and Upstairs Flat have more energy than the first half, but like not a lot of energy. Like it's just this very slow burn of an album that like I loved it right away because I'm a Burial freak. But like if you're not a Burial freak, to spend some time with his other records, but then give this one a shot, because I think if you're an ambient music fan, if you like very experimental compositions, whatever, like this is some of the best stuff out. Burial is still goated. Go listen to go listen to all the EPs. Don't listen to the compilation. Listen to all the EPs. Listen to the albums. Burial is still the best. Antidawn is a new feather in his cap. It's another thing that he's done that I really love. And he also finally put Nova and Moth on streaming this year. The two Fortet collabs that are like two of the greatest songs ever written, like straight up facts.
Yeah.
Can I share my thoughts on this next record, the one after this?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Here we go.
Is that snoring?
Okay, it's snoring. Very, very funny. The next record is Mitski, Laurel Hell. I put this on last minute because I put two records on here, one last minute and one literally as we're recording, because I was like, oh god, well, these are like two records we should probably touch on, you know? Yeah. Mitski, Laurel Hell. First Mitski record since Be the Cowboy, and of course, notably this record. So after Be the Cowboy, after the tour wrapped up, or at least, you know, she announced like, hey, I'm taking an indefinite hiatus from music. You know, did one last show in 2019 and pretty much just like disappeared off the face of the earth. The only time she reappeared was when there was a someone alleged that she participated in child sex trafficking. Which,
and there was also the her dad is in the CAA stuff.
Dude, yeah, which you didn't address that stuff. Literally, like Mitski got caught up in like a discourse tornado. Like people just decided like any crazy bullshit we can pin on her, we're going to do, because like this is our artist now. She's ours. We're normal.
Well, here's the thing: is that all happened, and she got off of social media, and then things got less normal.
TikTok popular.
Yeah. Yes, and then so. Famously, basically between kind of during the pandemic, really, she got really big on TikTok. A lot of people, her music got really popular on TikTok.
Phoebe Bridgers' streaming numbers, which is like
crazy,
insane to think about. Like an artist who has not made
Phoebe
any
had to do
music.
How much press to get those numbers, and Mitski did no press, and just it is the case where it's like, oh, like one song went viral. It's like no, like multiple songs like just got really big on TikTok.
Mainly Washing Machine.
And Mitski was like really big before this. Like we should know that Mitski was one of the top names.
She was in the she was in the mid echelon, I'd argue. Like she wasn't like the kind that was getting like nominated for Grammys, but like she was up there.
Yeah, again, very much was probably going to reach that point, like with the next record.
Yeah, with the next album cycle, regardless.
Over,
but like,
over the course,
she did not.
But she was already pretty. I mean, Be the Cowboy was Pitchfork Album of the Year, like.
Yeah, but like she wasn't quite there with you know the popular audience yet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But like, I think the thing to consider is like she did not want to make this album. Like her label just sent her a friendly reminder, like, "Hey, you contractually owe us another album."
Okay, I'm not gonna disagree. Like whatever. This record, sorry to Rose. So basically, she gets big on TikTok, and then she moves to Nashville and is living in Nashville, and like is like kind of the bug is like kind of starting to come back again, but like not totally. And then she remembers like, oh shit, I have like one more album on my deal with Dead Oceans. Like, yeah, I probably should just like let's just chase this bug and make a record and go on tour and get this over with. But it does seem like I think this record is definitely this is a contractually obligated release. it's better than that sounds, because when
it feels like a labor of obligation, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like from the singles
which I don't
heard,
disagree
it
with.
just sounds like perfunctory. Like she got the Semisonic guy to do co-writes on this. And it's just like, yeah, you could tell she was just kind of like
disrespect Mr. Closing Time.
No disrespect to no
disrespect to him. He's like a good songwriter. Like he's got a lot of stuff, but it's just like you can kind of tell
it's
like
her
she's
most
kind of having to bring in all
she's
the
ever put out. For sure.
It's very conventional. It is the most inessential record that she's put out thus far, which is of course which is like a weird thing to do when you become
between like her her early stuff is cool, but like I think you could argue that like the album she put out in college is less essential than this.
Maybe.
Like,
I mean, I guess maybe her most inessential release in a good long while.
In a decade, basically.
In almost a decade. Yeah, like I said, and I say all this, and I think this record's like fine. Like it's a totally fine record. It's not bad at all. Like it's not bad by any. There's no bad songs.
We'll talk about later that was an even better version of the album rollout that I was dreading and kind of avoiding, but then ended up liking the album more than I thought. Like I really, when I first heard this album, I was like, oh yeah, right. Mitski's still Mitski. Like she's not gonna put out a bad album. Like that was, and then so. The first time I heard it, I was very positive on it because I was only hearing like, oh,
because I had living low expectations.
Exactly. And then over time, I'm like, oh yeah, this is still what I expected, which is that this is not going to be anywhere close to my favorite Mitski album. I really loved Working for the Knife. And I think kind of going back to the like, there were a lot of people that were like, it sounds like she made this album at gunpoint. It sounds like she's not invested in this at all. And not to compare this directly to Matrix Resurrections, because Matrix Resurrections is the greatest movie of all time. And this is merely an okay Mitski album. But the thing is that like a lot of people were like complaining about the self-referential stuff in Matrix Resurrections and saying like, well, this thing isn't sincere because you're just talking about how you have to do this because Warner Brothers told you to, which is missing the whole point of the movie. But like, I think similarly with Working for the Knife, like Matty was saying, is that like, yes, part of this album is like because she is under contractual obligation, but I think Working for the Knife is a great example of like, let me use this weird feeling I have for inspiration for my songwriting. Like, let me talk about what it's like trying to build toward this dream. And then all of a sudden this dream becomes this thing that you're like tied to and have to service, and like in the complicated feelings of that. And I think it does it in a way that is not, does not fall into the traps of the 2021 pop albums I was discussing earlier, where it's like, the most important thing in the world in the middle of a global pandemic is me, rich celebrity, and my music problems. Like there are a lot of very navel-gazy albums last year that did not earn their navel-gaziness. I'm not including Billie Eilish in this because, of course, we're all Team Billie mode. But there were a lot of albums last year. There are a lot of albums last year that were the sucky version of this, and I think that Laurel Hell is more interesting than that because, of course, Mitski is more interesting than that. Like, she's a really great, interesting songwriter. And even when it's not my thing and not something I've stuck around with a lot, like, I do have to respect that, like, this is a very solid, like, 7 probably. Maybe, like, a light 7, but, like, a solid 7.
A gentleman's 7. A gentleman's 7.
I didn't listen to the thing in full. I just heard the singles. It was just like,
I like the singles though.
I see that. Like,
pretty good.
I this year I am learning to divest my time by not trying things that I know I'm gonna hate.
That is fair. I salute that.
Speaking of things I knew I probably wouldn't like.
Yeah,
let me get my thoughts out on this next one.
Yeah, final conclusion on Laurel Hell. Not as bad as you might think it could be because it's like contribution, but like definitely like a mid Mitski album in comparison to her previous 3 records. Because I think Bury Me Out Creek, Puberty 2, Be the Cowboy, those are 3 great records, and this is just lesser. Although this does maybe hopefully making this record just sort of like, hey, just getting this out of the way to go on to make better records, you know, where it's like there's actual passion there.
Yeah, but it depends on if she wants to continue doing it.
That's
after because like, I feel like the moment she stepped back into the world and started touring again, she got caught up in like 5 more freak discourse storms. I don't know how you continue.
And then there were like the fans at Mitski shows holding up like signs saying like white people, you're not allowed to like this song. Like,
God, we don't.
like,
Yeah, let's
again,
not even.
she did not. Mitski did not ask for this. She simply just accidentally became the maelstrom of like weirdo white teenagers like issues that they need to work out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, next record, Charli XCX, Crash. This again, it's a similar case. It's a similar case to Mitski, although maybe more so the rollout of this album was bad. This was a bad rollout. This was a
disastrous rollout.
I for a very brief moment in time thought that this might be an interesting rollout, and then it took a hard turn for the worse. And then some stuff started to make me like consider I really like. We have to shout out Rihanna's great interview on NPR. Like,
yes,
there was a period very late into the very late into the like album rollout where I was like, okay, I finally get what she's going for here. But then I got to the album and was like, yeah, no, I still don't like it. Like,
I listened all the way up
to something where it's like this album, it's not as bad as I expected, but still at the end of the day, it's like it's not a complete disaster, but like maybe it would have been better if it was. Like the fact that there's this like discoursey long rollout, and what we get is just like a really mediocre pop record that
not just like, a mediocre pop record, but a mediocre pop throwback record, which is like even more. Let
me go off for a second.
She's pulling the move several years late, which is even worse.
Yeah, like, can I let me go off for a second on this. I am fucking sick of 80s pastiche. It's fucking done.
About with the Mitski album too. I will
Mitski
say
album too also suffers from this.
I have my very strong opinion about this as someone who still loves synth pop bullshit and loves so much 80s synth music, and so like I am the person this bait is for. But the difference is you can tell the difference between someone who really like has an appreciation and technical understanding of synth pop music in a way that they're like, I think that there's room for me to do something different with the 80s pastiche. Like, there's an album coming out, finally, Jesus Christ, speaking of long rollouts, from Let's Eat Grandma, that has some 80s interpolation type stuff on it. And listen, they can do that because they know how to fucking pull it off. They know how to make it interesting and exciting and vibrant in the way that 80s synth pop music was in the 80s. And a lot of people just put it on like a costume. They put it on like they're dressing up for 80s night. Like,
exactly, because there's a ton of great records that I think where artists have gone more electronic, more synthy, and I think it's worked out. I mean, Rose and everyone else disagrees, but I think Carsey Hadress, I think they did it really well.
Listen, in about 4 days, I'm going to go see Will Toledo in his full fucking fursuit that he just came out.
He's only gonna wear. He only wore it for the one show. He's like, it's too hot, and I gotta wear it another time. But again, that was my album there last year.
I hate to say it.
But my album of the year last year was Strange Rangers, No Light in Heaven. Here's this like emo indie rock band who goes electronic and like learns the fucking craft and like makes some really, is able to use the synth uniquely, which a lot of bands like, again, who just go, oh, we're just gonna do a synth record because we've run out of ideas. Strange Ranger was like, no, we have too many ideas and we need to expand our palette to execute these ideas. Similar deal to the Pendant record that's coming out. And by the time this comes out on Wednesday, Patreon, Friday, day for everybody else, it'll be out on the 8th. Great record, my album of the year so far. So we'll just skip that for the lightning round because it's technically Q2 anyways. Again, being able to kind of go synthy, dancey, but combine that with like really unique influences where it's not just like boring 80s pastiche. Like, hey, this is unique. This fucking Charli record. The frustrating thing with this record too is that we know that it starts well, which again, Charli does rarely, if ever, fucks up on the intros. The issue is that we know that Charli can do way better than this. We know that she has a very 100%. Futuristic view of pop music. So to see this regression is like fucking like it makes no sense. I've seen some people. Mike the Snare, great YouTube channel, briefly touched on this on his recent March roundup, where people maybe thought, oh, is this record like an endless where it's just sort of like this contractual, like this purposefully like sell out contractual obligation album, and then we'll get the real one some point down the line. That's not gonna happen.
Endless goated, by the way.
Guys, Nation. His next album is gonna be Nation.
Oh my god. But the problem is that like, okay, like if that's true, then why the fuck is there this giant rollout? Like, for it's clear that this is a vision. This is a dragon she wanted to chase again, because but it's just like, hopefully, again, this is supposedly her last record for Atlantic, so hopefully this means, okay, she's off Atlantic. She's probably gonna go to a different major, but probably one like an Earl Sweatshirt deal where it's
she's gonna go to Young.
She'll probably go to a major, but it's gonna be one of those things where it's like, basically the major's like, distribution, we'll give you some money and other things, but like, creative freedom. I think she's clearly an artist that has has enough of a fan base where she's earned that distinction. But yeah, this record it's not a complete miss. There is some good stuff on here. Again, as
I
Rose
wouldn't
said,
know, because like I checked out at a very specific moment. I powered through those early singles, which are all pretty bad other than New Shapes, and then I hit Baby, and I just promptly went, no more.
Baby is one of the worst singles she's ever made. It is TikTok bullshit in the worst way.
I kind of like Baby a little bit.
Matty,
I think it's one of the better singles.
Literal baby brain.
Little baby. What are you gonna do? But no, like, again, Crash intro's good.
I'm Baby
I don't really care for New Shapes that much. I think also because the fact that, like, okay, well, the last time that Charli collaborated with Christine and the Queens, it's like a top 5 Charli song. So this is like fucking disaster.
I think that
in comparison.
song is deeply overrated, but I will not get into it.
Nevertheless, I mean, my final thoughts on Crash, again, it could have been worse, but like, man, I wish it was like, it's one of those records where it's just like, man, this record would be like much more interesting if it was more of a disaster.
Yeah,
but it's not.
That's exactly right. I really liked Eric Bennett's review of the album for Paste. Eric is a very, very big Charli XCX fan, and I think even though the 7.2 score is like a little higher than kind of the review sounds like it's reading, their basic take on it is that it's not her lowest point, but it's her first misstep. Basically, that like, it's not a disaster, but just there's a lot of choices that just don't really work. And I think a lot of especially when you listen to like the bonus tracks too, which I only briefly did, but like some of those are better than some of the songs that made the cut on the album. And just the whole, like, when Eric first explained it, when they were talking about the singles, I think specifically Good Ones and New Shapes, is it's like Charli got so sick of the way that hyperpop was being kind of, what started out as this very like expansionist, experimental, creative, exciting thing, was very quickly being boxed into its own label. And Spotify came up with the stupid fucking playlist that has become the name of the genre, which is like the worst shit that's happening now, where like major tech companies are deciding the names of like intellectual whatever creative movements. But I think Charli sort of reacted to that in a very reactionary way, where she's sort of like, she's simultaneously at the end of her deal, and she realizes that she's never really utilized the resources of her label. Like, she has tried at every point basically to do the opposite of what they wanted and do like weird shit instead of like what they thought of as being the most marketable. And now she was like, what if I used all the money that they're willing to give me and like clear every sample and interpolation I want to use, and like let me make this big glitzy pop album? But I think that it's just underbaked and misconsidered, and a lot of these songs are like, if you're gonna do a big album, you gotta make the songs fucking sharp. You got to make them really, really well honed. And there's just a lot of shit on here that feels half-assed, which is a bummer, because like, Rose, you very unfortunately left before the best song on the album, which is Lightning, the next song.
Let me guess, is that the OPN one? I'm just gonna guess.
It's not. Oh. Every Rule is the OPN song, which is with A.G. Cook, which is a very ballady song, but in a way I like. I actually really do love the OPN song. No surprises there. But then like the album ends on Twice, which is like so anticlimactic and bad as a closer, like terrible. So I don't know. I listened to this like 1.5 times. I checked out the songs on the deluxe version. It's fine. It's definitely not even close to my favorite Charli record. I like How I'm Feeling Now 1,000,000 times more than this. Yeah, that's all we have to say. It's not. Yeah, it's not.
I think also one of the fatal flaws of this record is that A.G. Cook is only on like 2 songs, and I think A.G. Cook and Charli have been very good collaborators.
Yeah, I listen. Charli's Self-Titled is like my favorite record of hers by like a long shot. Like, I like Pop 2. I like Number One Angel a lot, but like I think Self-Titled is like such a knockout, and I think a huge part of it is like having AG Cook on as like the like main guy for your record is a very smart move. Like having one distinct guy. It's like how I think like Rina. It's like why I think Rina Sawayama also has like a high success rate. It's like Clarence Clarity is her guy. Like if you have a guy who is there to unite the aesthetic instead of just like bringing in a bunch of fucking weirdos and like telling them like, hey, each of you make me 10 tracks with 10 sonic identities. Like it's just not gonna sound the same if you're trying to do it.
Look, folks. In short, the key to success as a pop artist is you gotta find yourself a little British tall guy, a little skinny British tall boy with long hair.
He just has to be a little freaky looking dude, like
little freaky
point never.
Yes, exactly.
That's true.
Little freaky looking dude.
Little freaky European looking boy.
I think all the time about the OPN interview where he talks about how when he walks around Brooklyn, he sees people wearing OPN merch and they always look exactly like him.
I was thinking of the quote.
I say that I'm wearing an OPN shirt right now as we speak.
I was thinking you were going to do the other quote where he was like, yeah, the Weeknd and Ella Angela would be sitting in the studio making cool shit. Too, and I would pop in the room like Kramer from Seinfeld being like, hey guys, I just fucked around on a synth.
Yeah, OPN is great. And
he's got such good quotes. Yeah, anyway, for our final main record, can I introduce it since I'm the biggest fan here? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's about right. Our next record we're talking about, here's the thing: we are in the minority with this record. We have to say that
this is one of the most acclaimed records of the year.
This is the hater hour of the Indieheads podcast.
This is truly, we're like most of the records. It's like, okay, there's not everyone, there's some people where it's like Beach House. It's one where it's like it's guys detractors. This is a record where we are completely in the minority of not liking, and of course we are talking about Ants From Up There by Black Country New Road. Now, I'm not sure what Rose, if Jackie had more thoughts. I'm gonna have a lot. I'm gonna try to get on my soapbox. I'll try to keep it as short as I can.
This is the second highest rated album of the year. Like the only thing higher than this on Metacritic is MOTOMAMI.
Before you start, we'll just say, not only do I not have a lot to say about this, in the words of Rose, this is an album where I decided, you know what? I listened to the singles. I know I'm not gonna fucking like this shit.
Exactly. Like I heard 2 singles. I was just like, this is gonna be for a bunch of fucking dorks, like the worst kind of people.
I'm a dork, but like
I'm a dork too.
Just like the last
but like a different kind of dork.
Exactly.
For me, okay,
no,
like
exactly.
I'm like the dork who likes circus music made by like 40-year-old men who sing songs titled like fucking monkey riches and shit like that. This is like the kind of music for dorks who listen to like self-serious bullshit about jacking off to Charli XCX. Like I can't relate to this at all.
Yeah.
Okay. We can't even get talking about that song.
But let me proceed. So of course, famously, I was very early on in the Black Country New Road train. Of course, I discovered them when Sunglasses came out, and I immediately loved that track. I know Rose doesn't like it that much, but I still think it's a great song. And it was my song of the year, that year 2019. The record comes out last year for the first time. I was not into it at first. I thought it was disappointment, but I put out a review about a month later, went back to it, grew on me a lot. I still think it's a good record. I think it was just outside of my top 10 last year. Although it was in my top 10 for a while last year, but just sort of like as I was doing my last minute changes, I kind of went down a little teeny tiny bit. But I still think it's a very good record. And I said famously in my review that that one day they will make a great record. It's just, this is not the record. And this record is, and I assume when I said that, I assumed, well, okay, it's probably gonna be the next record.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is a complete fucking dud. This record is a complete fucking dud in my eyes. As the singles were rolling out, I immediately was like, oh god, this is gonna be a fucking dud. And honestly, here's the thing that made me feel especially crazy is that I was the only one.
Yes.
Well, obviously besides people in the chat, but like on Indieheads, on the subreddit, on like critics, I was the only one where I was like, what do you guys like this? Like, this is bad. Like, this is not so very good. Bad. This is bad. This like this music does not play to any of the band members' strengths. Like, again, the fact that I have to.
I saw people comparing this to The Monitor, one of my favorite records of all time, and I wanted to throw up some fucking
after
hands.
years and years and years of the Indieheads podcast trying to find the new funeral, the indie world picked some dog shit to call the new funeral. I saw multiple people compare this to Funeral. Like, what the hell?
And I don't blame them.
What are we doing here, guys?
And I do not blame them for that comparison.
It is trying to go for that. You're right.
But it's unearned. That's the problem. It's just like it's just doing like that thing that term that people fucking throw on to like post Godspeed bands, like post Godspeed post rock bands. They call them crescendo core. This is crescendo core.
Yeah.
This is like actual crescendo core. It makes me so
mad. I would much rather listen to fucking Explosions in the Sky.
Same. I would that one Explosions in the Sky record with the guy with the boat. I would love to listen.
Natty. Go ahead.
Rose.
I'm sorry. I got mad.
I know you got mad. I know. I gotta speak as a, I guess now a former fan of this band. As the singles are rolling out, I was just increasingly worried. I was like, holy shit, this is gonna be a fucking brick. And unfortunately it is a brick. I try to go into this record with an open mind, and what I got is just like it is a band that is not playing to any of their strengths. What makes their early material work so much is the fact that there is that sort of gremlin mindset-y sort of jagged anxiety riddenness where like, you know, you can kind of not totally focus on Isaac Wood's lyrics because like, hey, the band's going fucking nutty in the background, you know, like it's, you know, able to sort of accurately display this sort of like anxiety and sort of being British. And this is like, whereas like you know, that first record and the first singles were like, this is like an accurate representation of what it's like to be British. This is like a more romantic interpretation of what it's like to be British, and I don't want that. I don't want that at all.
I want to see these people as the little freaks they are.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, this record, I feel like, you know, I like on this record and the Black Midi album from last year, it feels like, you know, these bands are obviously straying away from their initial sounds, whereas I think Black Midi pulled it off because Black Midi are like, they're good songwriters and they can pull that stuff off. They can again, they know that they at least like they were very smart on Cavalcade where they, because their muse follows so many different directions, you know, they didn't go full tilt one direction. They sort of just like explored, you know, all these different things they were kind of doing, but it still was like a cohesive package. This is a case where Isaac Wood, I again, when it was announced that he was leaving the band, I was not really sad about it, to be honest. And it sucks because he was the reason why I was into the band in the first place. But when it announced he was leaving, I was like, yeah, I think this is probably a good move. I think this band probably needs to, you know, I don't think he needs to lead this band anymore because again, under his leadership for this record, I think this is just a fucking this is not a good record. You know, everyone's freaking out. I'm trying to pull up the comment I wrote when this album came out in the fresh album thread on Indieheads because it's going to be low down because, you know, people don't like negative things.
It's the
especially on a thread where like 90% of the comments are, oh my god, album of the lifetime, I can't fucking believe it, I have never heard anything like this, so next funeral. What I will say about this album, besides the fact that I haven't listened to it entirely, I just want to say quickly, I have a brief anecdote, and it's so funny. You thought I wasn't going to talk on this episode because I'm sick. You're wrong. But I worked a show for an artist who will remain nameless because I want to save it for the punchline of this joke. But I worked a lot of shows at the Wiltern, and there was this artist that I thought was so cringy and bad and like not good at music, even on a fundamental level. And then I saw him live, and it was worse. But there were people there, and more specifically, there were actually girls there. And I was like, I thought this would just be for dorky incel dudes, but apparently there are girls who like this and real people who like this. And I'm like, you know what? I still don't get it. I still don't like it, but good for you. You can have it, I guess. And anyways, that's a long way of saying I'm glad that music critics have their own Hobo Johnson now. Music critics have a Hobo Johnson that makes music for them, and they can have it. You know, it's not for me.
Yeah. I mean, overall, again, Isaac Wood is a front man on this record. He's not playing to his strengths. I think lyrically, this record takes a fucking dive.
Yeah.
It's like, you know,
even with the edits that they made, basketball shoes. No.
Yeah, this is supposed to be like a deep, thoughtful record where he's doing poetry, and it just doesn't fucking land because it's not playing to his strengths as a writer. And vocally, again, I don't want to hear Isaac Wood try to sing like a like have like a good like try to sing like a good singer.
The only guy who should be like singing in like the Gremlin Core shit is Jordy Creep, because he has a beautiful voice.
A beautiful voice, and he's still a fucking weirdo. It still has a weird quality to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like a weirdo version of like a classical career.
And also, it feels like in some ways, like Jordy like goes all. If he's going to do some Scott Walker shit, Jordy's going all the way. Whereas I feel like again, it makes sense why he left after this record, because it feels like in some ways, like this feels like. Of course, people are going to hate me for this, and it might be a wrong comment, but the way that I feel about this record is that it doesn't feel like his heart is fully in it when it comes to this record. It feels like there's an energy here where he's just kind of like, again, I didn't want them to make a sequel to For the First Time too. Again, they were a band I was excited about because I'm like, okay, this is a band that's gonna be doing a lot of cool different. I mean, there's so many members and they all come from different musical backgrounds. Like, hey, they're gonna be doing some cool, interesting stuff over the years. I may not like everything, but like, hey, there's always gonna be something interesting. But that's the issue. This record, it's not even very interesting. Like, it's not like an interesting divergence from their original sound. It's just a very, very boring, like crescendo orchestral rock record. It's like,
the thing I've seen people compare it to, and I've seen people do this both positively and negatively, is Dave Matthews Band, which is just like not where this band was like headed originally,
Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing is, too, like I've also
they went from Flynn to Dave Matthews Band. Like, what happened?
They could never make Crash Into Me. I'm sorry, they could never do it.
Yes,
so true.
Isaac will never write a good song about coming in someone.
Oh my god. Okay, we're gonna. Let me continue.
New Road will never dump 40,000 pounds of poop off of Chicago.
We cannot relay the Dave Matthews Band tour bus poo story. But I mean, with this record too, I feel like this record too, it's very inspired by like two things that in my early indie journeys, that even I was just like right away like, nope, I'm good. Which is like Britpop and Britpop inspired stuff, which we did talk about on the Keen record or the Keen episode a little bit, and like fucking Twee. I do not like Twee. Like I'll say that straight up. I think Twee's fucking stupid.
I'm a known Twee enjoyer. Oh, yeah. I can't go as far as
I saw the people compare this to Los Campesinos, and like it's Los Campesinos but not fun.
I will say I am a noted Twee enjoyer. I don't go as far as Michael Brooks, where I stand she and him, but like I like a little bit of Twee on the sandwich, a little dash of Twee on the dish is enjoyable for me sometimes, and I am ready for the Twee revival whenever it decides to finally happen. But like,
make Camera Obscura famous again.
Stop trying to make Ants from Up Here happen. It's not gonna happen.
Well, unfortunately, it is going to happen because again, this is a very critically acclaimed record. The streaming is fucking crazy.
This is going to be the indie album.
Hey, my favorite song on the last album was the instrumental one. Maybe they'll make a great album without Isaac. Not to be mean, because he's going through mental health stuff too. Because like. Yeah, like I don't want to pile on, but
yeah. Again, I mean, I should also state that my least favorite song on the last record was track X, and this record very much like there's some people who really fucking love track X. They were like, "That's my favorite song on the record," which I was like, "Are you fucking crazy? Are you stupid?" But that's again that is the direction they decided to follow on this record, and I do not think it works. And also, I think another big thing is that, I feel like the band has missed whereas For the First Time, it was the songs, like, again, most of the songs were good, production was standing. Not having Dan Carey on the boards, I think, is a mistake for this band. I think
even though he's anti-lunch.
I think he's anti. I think the first big mistake the Black Country New Road made was deciding to not work with him on the debut record and not. So I mean, hopefully they reunite in this new form that they're in, but we'll see. Again, in Black we did the same thing where they did, they decided not to work with Dan Carey again on their record, and I do think that Cavalcade maybe suffered a teeny tiny bit for it, but the songs are good enough where it's like, okay, not for the direction they want to go on that record. It makes sense why you don't want to have Dan Carey, but Dan Carey can do, like, I mean, if we look at Fontaine's DC, you can do some stuff like this, like. But yeah,
although I understand Jordy probably just likes lunch too much, and you know what?
Jordy loves again.
He loves fine dining.
He loves a lunch. Jordy, he nice very much. Jordy at this point in his career,
Jordy is wants to be taste, and
he's a businessman. He wants to be Matthew McConaughey in The Wolf of Wall Street. Like,
listen, I'm genuinely excited for that next Black Midi record because it understands what all the other bands have failed, which is like you got to turn the batshit dial like into the hot position.
Yes. Whereas
most
Squid are
importantly,
getting more boring, and they're gonna make her Radiohead album next, and I'm gonna love that shit.
Yeah,
Anyway,
listen, I'm sure the Squid album will be fine, but like nothing will compare to those Black Midi songs I've heard. Those things are just so fucking cartoony.
Mm-hmm. But to conclude my thoughts on Ants from Up There, the most important thing that Black Country Road forgot to do on this record is that they forgot to make the songs good.
Mm-hmm. That's
again,
listen. So many people in the last like
classic
20
mistake.
Minutes.
Classic mistake.
The last 20 minutes of this podcast has just been like going like 3 albums in a row. Like, hey, yeah, I think they forgot to make the songs good.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, there are a couple of remembered to make the songs good songs on Laurel Hell more than either of the last 2, but yes. Mm-hmm. Anyways, let's get into the lightning round because folks.
Lightning round. Okay, that's
we're 2 hours into this episode. I could talk for another 3. There are so many albums there are albums I'm leaving off of this lightning round list that I would bring up that I might even
Same, I'll throw quick shout outs at the very end, but
yes, at the very end, Matty is gonna have to shut us off. We're still trying to cram in more albums.
Yeah. I'm not. So I think this first round is Jackie mode. So let's go Jackie mode real quick.
Well, I have stuff to say about these first.
There's the ones that
we're gonna try to be very brief on all of these. Okay, the first thing up is the posthumous album from Phife Dawg. It's called Forever. It's been long awaited. It was in the process of being made before he died, and they really took their time with giving it some time to breathe for a while before they went right. Like they didn't want to do the posthumous album where it's like Pop Smoke and it's like, dude, let the guy's body be in the ground for a little bit before you start like making him do a song and dance. You know what I mean? Like with Juice WRLD, all the posthumous albums. Like I think that they
like in that case, it's a separation between like, his friends actually bothering to curate something together versus
that's also true.
The label just going to the family and being like, hey, can we use all these demos we found?
And also by having it be 5 years later, it was released it was not released on a Friday because it was released on the exact 5-year anniversary of his death. And I think the beautiful thing about that is that this album was going to be bittersweet no matter what. But now that we're 5 years removed from the death and like have moved on from it, but also like having him then come back and be having such a fun, nice time. Like one of the best songs in this album is a song called Wow Factor. And this is essentially a Doughboys episode as a song because literally the concept of the song is, I've seen a lot of good, I've seen a lot of bad. I've been living quite a while. I just want to focus on what's good. Things that make me say, wow, you know what I mean? And then he proceeds to list in the style of these are my favorite things. He proceeds to list a bunch of things that he likes, including a bunch of albums and artists. But then he gets into Sofia Vergara's titties, The Mind of Will Ferrell, Ben Stiller, hilarious. I love this whole album. I love listening to Phife Dawg name drop current era sports players, but also I love how all of the albums are all of the references to this are so dated to the mid 2010s. It's like I love that these are like his old guy references, and I think this album is really sweet. The best song on this album by far is the remix of Nutshell with Busta Rhymes and Redman. Yes. Oh my god, it is so much fun listening to them go hammer again together. And of course, Dear Dilla featuring Q-Tip Reprise, which is a song that they made in tribute to Dilla that then becomes a song for Dilla and Phife. Is beautiful. Made me cry. I love this album a lot. It's really sweet, beautiful. Rest in peace, Phife Dawg forever. The 5-foot freak. The 5'2" assassin.
All right, make it quick, Rose.
Don't worry. The best band out of North or South Carolina. It's Wednesday, baby. They last year did Twin Plagues, which was my album of the year, and this year they came back immediately with Mowing the Leaves instead of Piling Them Up, which is a covers record that's just like a whole swath of bands who are their inspiration. Mm-hmm. So you got stuff like the 90s noise freaks like Medicine and Smashing Pumpkins. You got a lot of country stuff like Gary Clark Jr. and Drive-By Truckers. It's just like it's a fun little rowdy time, and like I think like the cool thing about it is like they all feel like sorry, I said Gary Clark Jr. I meant Gary Stewart. I don't know where I got the other name from, but like just every song here, like, despite being a cover, it feels like a Wednesday song. Like, they have made them all into Wednesday songs, for better or worse. And I kind of love that. Like, that they've so perfectly honed their aesthetic now that they can play other people's songs to their strengths, which is, like, just, it's a good band. Good band. I'm excited for their next LP.
Yeah. Yes. And this is one of the rare covers albums that, like, I'm going to put it on my album of the year list because it doesn't feel like a covers album. It feels like a Wednesday album. Like, and even in the very best moments of it, like, I have never had a drive-by truckers phase because I am not of the yeehaw variety for the most part, but I've been dabbling more and more and more, and the country stuff on here is probably the best. I like the Smashing Pumpkins cover a lot. I love the Hotline TNT cover. Shout out to fucking Hotline TNT, the band of formerly the band Weed. Shout out to the band Weed one time. My chart had low-key Slacker vibes this quarter. Anyways, this album is great. You should listen to it. Mowing the Leaves instead of piling them up. The best two songs are for sure Women She's Without Whiskey and She's Acting Single, I'm Drinking Double. Yes, 100%. Women Without Whiskey fucked me up so bad. I hadn't heard that song before, so when they dropped the line that's like, alcohol doesn't make you do anything, it just lets you. I'm just like,
it's so good.
This was supposed to be the lightning round.
Okay. Moving on.
This is I moved this one from the main course.
Yes, this was going to be a main course album that we got kicked to the lightning round. Okay, we're moving on. We need to go fast. I'm going to go really fast with this one because I added this one at the very last minute. Kilo Kish finally put out a new album. Kilo Kish, I don't know how to say her name.
Kilo Kish.
Kilo Kish. Collaborator Vince Staples. Put out an album in 2016. Put out a really good EP in 2019. It's like Mother without the R. I like that EP a lot. This album is fucking awesome. It's the best thing she's ever done. It's so well sequenced. It's so fun. It's a really good mix of pop and rap. There's a Miguel feature, and I'm like, Miguel? I haven't heard that name in years, and it isn't boring. It's a good Miguel feature. The Vince Staples song is very fun. It's a great album. Go listen to it. If you haven't checked out Kilo Kish before, I recommend it to a lot of people. It's very appealing to a lot of people while also being very specific. And this next one is another me pick. Speaking of pop music being fun again, Awu Wolfhow. Hikaru Utada is an artist who I'm admittedly very new to. And I only checked it out because they were going to cover it on Hot Singles, and the episode still hasn't come out yet, but it's going to come out eventually, supposedly. But this fucking album is so good. Hikaru is a Japanese pop star who is like one of the biggest selling artists in Japan and has been huge there since like the early 2000s. But they recently came out as non-binary, and now they like in the last couple of years have started crossing over in a big way with like American audiences who are like more interested and open to J-pop. And I think that this album, the way that it blends English and Japanese vocals, the way it blends J-pop in classic J-pop sounds with like a lot of fresh contemporary pop sounds. There's like a 9-minute long house song on this album. There's so many fucking bangers. It is just like a pop album in a kind of a, like, if you want to talk to Charli XCX about how to make a throwback major label pop album that still sounds like a 2022 album, someone did it, and it's Hikaru Utada. It's amazing. The album is called Bad Mode, which is ironic because the album is Good Mode. It's a good album. I stole that joke from someone else. That's not an original joke, obviously, but they should have called it Good Mode because it's a good album. Anyways, oh god, these next two are also Jackie Core. Fuck. Okay, Huerco S, Plonk. My voice is still going. We're powering.
Can I just say about this one?
Plonk. That's honestly all we really need to say about Plonk. Huerco S is great. Shout out to that album. I always forget the name of it because it's such a long album title.
I think it's on my, hang on, let me pull up on Spotify. It was one of my NWE albums this year, so it's on my Spotify.
Yes, I'm pulling it up.
For those of you who have never, in parentheses, and also those who have.
Yes, it's a great album title, a great ambient album. And this is not really an ambient album. This is a step in a different direction, going for something a little more kind of, there's more percussion, but it's very abstract, avant-garde-y percussion. It's a little less accessible to the way that the first album is, but for an ambient album, for those of you who have never, and also those who have, is very naughty in its like construction where it washes over you gently, but there is a lot of kind of naughtiness to the way the songs are put together. And I think this album explores that more. It's a bit more of a challenging listen, but I also think it's very cool and interesting, and it's well paced. Plonk is a good album. I haven't spent a lot of time with it because it's a 90-minute long like experimental electronic album, and I've had to power through a lot of music this year, so I haven't given it the time it really deserves. But Huerco S does no wrong. Shout out to Plonk. Plonk.
Plonk.
Anyways, oh god, the next two. Fuck, we keep going. I'm gonna get a break in a second. Hatena, Years of Failure.
I'll talk about this one for a bit.
Go ahead.
So Jackie described this one as like a house record that gets really fucked up like every few minutes, and like that's kind of why it rules to me. I'm just like, like you'll hear this bit, and it's just like a bunch of freaky noise for a bit, and then suddenly like this groove starts popping up, and you're just like, oh my god, like you start doing that head bob like in that fucking Jay-Z Jeff like.
It has a lot of OPN sound fuckery, like abstract avant-garde stuff, but like the way
it's like the freakiest parts of Replica, but like mixed with like really good grooves.
Yes, no, this album is super inspired by Bloghouse, super inspired by like Justice and like Future Funk, and like really, really, really bright, really slammed hard into a compressor dance music, but then deconstructing that and making it all fucked up and weird and noisy. And yeah, this album is fucking incredible. Immediately, I was like, I need to know who this person is and other stuff that they've done. And I went and checked out their album from last year, which is just called Email. And that album is also incredible. This is on Business Casual, which is a great label, by the way. And the second song on this album, Blood, which is like the first real song on the album, slams so fucking hard. This album is great. You should check it out if you like freaky electronic music. This is the when you made the joke last year about the Aya album. This is kind of in that zone, but I'd say it's more it's more accessible than that. It's less like trying to freak you the fuck out, and is more like, let's have a fun time, but let's also make it weird. This album's good.
House party nearby. I'm bringing weird guys.
Exactly.
Quote. Bleep.
Exactly. And now in a completely different lane. This is a great example of something we were talking about earlier in the episode, which is an album rollout you are very, very concerned about that ends up going totally fine because the artist is good. I was so worried about this ROSALÍA album. I was so worried about this ROSALÍA album. Everything from the album cover to the feature to the not features but the
singles.
The singles, like, and like the SNL performance, it was all giving hanging out way too much with Arca vibes. It was all giving, in the words of Black Dresses, money makes you stupid vibes. And it turns out I was wrong to doubt ROSALÍA because this is a great album. This is even more so, like, Laurel Hell was an album that like I enjoyed because of my low expectations, and this is like, I just fully realized that like I didn't get it until I heard the whole album. And even though I don't love all of the singles, because all the songs they picked as singles are like the more traditional reggaeton pop crossover stuff, like there is weirder stuff on the album. And as the whole album unfurls, you realize that like it's not so much that she wanted to make a sellout like next album, it's more that she wanted this album to be more fun and funny and playful in a way that her last album was not. And her last album is very like art pop, flamenco, reggaeton hybrid music that was like, it's produced by El Guincho, who worked on the FK Twigs album. It's very like pristine and crystalline and like very precise. And this album is like, let me have fun and shake my ass for an album, but also I'm still ROSALÍA. I'm still insanely fucking talented. I still know how to write a good song. And there's a lot of damn good songs on this album. I really like the Weeknd song where he sings in Spanish. The Weeknd is way better at singing in Spanish than Justin Bieber is, to the surprise of no one. And I think this whole album is dope. I really like Sayoko. Even like Hentai was the song I was very worried about because that just seemed like the Arca alarm.
Hentai has 9 songwriters.
Hentai has 9 songwriters, but it's not bad.
It's a funny sentence.
And the song Cute, which has like a bunch of U's in it, that song fucking bangs. That beat is insane. The whole album is really good. It's a little too long, but it's 16 songs, 42 minutes. It keeps it pretty short. It keeps the track list moving. Like, none of the songs are too long. Great record, great pop record, way better than Crash.
Bam. Alrighty. Let's see. Underoath, Voyeurist. That's a Rose pick, I assume.
Yes, this is entirely me. If I didn't put this on here, I would probably be killed by Lily, because I've been hanging out in the true cult metal channel of our Discord all year, because I have become an absolute dang ass freak, and this record. I finally understand the Oath pill. Like last year, Lily was trying to get me on some of those early Underoath records, specifically Lost in the Sound of Separation, which I thought was pretty good, but like I didn't quite fully understand the Oath pill because like I hadn't fully gotten on this band. And then this record just like came barreling in. Like this is insane for like a late era band. Like they're doing so many different ideas. They're like it like anytime a metal band like goes, so what if we add some synths and like kind of made it freaky, I'm just like, sure, yeah, go for it. And like this does a little bit of that, and then also just like a little bit of their like traditional like scramsy stuff where like it's fun, like more than anything. It's like a quick 40 minutes. Like there's the song titles here are pretty much what you'd expect. Like I'm pretty sure I'm out of luck and have no friends is the best song on here, if that tells you anything. It's just a very fun like scrams record and very fun band that I've finally clicked with fully because of this record. And I'm very appreciative of such a thing. Like Thorn, Pneumonia, just good songs all around.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna just go. We're just gonna go out of order. I'm just gonna go Mattycore time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The problem with this year so far is that there's a number of albums that I really like from this year that are not Q1 releases or advances I got, so I have to wait.
First world music biz problems.
Yeah, I know. Music business problems, baby. But there's a couple.
We're listening to all these cool albums before you, and so like it's a real big burden on us because you have to keep it a secret.
I really hate being
you're
an
a publicist. Come on.
I hate getting
I'm talking shit, Matty. I'm being funny at my own expense. At my own expense.
It's music business. Again, I'm a critic, baby. You know this.
We're doing big business insider deals. We're dressing up in suits and hanging out with Jordy Creep. You know, we're moving and grooving.
We're not hanging out with.
I'm close personal friends.
So we're not.
Like it's casual though.
Listen, if we hung out with Jordy Grief, like we have brushed elbows with a couple of famos and not bragged about it, but if we hung out with Jordy Grief, we would do a 2-hour podcast. We would do a 2-hour podcast about what it was like to hang out with Jordy Grief.
No, we wouldn't invite him on the podcast and not talk about music at all. We would be talking about like
my ideal Jordy Greep podcast is we get Gavin to get a bunch of videos and we just watch a bunch of YouTube videos.
We watch some of the vibe streams with Gavin.
I would love to expose him to quote American culture by just getting Gavin to get like the dumbest.
All right, we need to keep we're so long into this episode.
Here's what we do: we get Jordy Greep, and we pull up the Gavin's Goodies playlist and we watch it with Jordy Greep until Jordy Greep taps out. But he's not going to tap out. We're going to force him to watch. Anyways,
Mattycore time.
Mattycore time. I mentioned this record earlier. PENDANT Harp. It comes out on April 8th, so it's technically Q2, but it's going to be like months. It's going to be. I'm going to mention it now because it's coming out on Friday. Remind it. My album of the year so far. Really great. Shoegazy, electronic, synth pop, crazy ass white boy raps on like 2 or 3 of the tracks. I have an interview running with him very soon for The Alternative, which I really hope you all read because I think it's a good interview and it's a very good record. Paul Cherry, his new record, back on the music. I was a big fan of his 2018 record. This one's a bit of a lesser one, but it's still pretty good. If you're a Steely Dan fan, I would check it out. It's basically like, what if one of the weird guys that Steely Dan made up was just like a real guy and made Steely Dan music? It's fine. It's a bit of a weird thing, like it doesn't totally work always. Just like it's like, okay, like the thing is that with Steely Dan is that there's that separation between like Fagan and Becker and the weird guys he came up with. It's like, oh, this is like, oh, the weird guy is real and he's making music, but it's fine. It's a good record, some really good songs. The singles are all pretty excellent.
I saw a post on Twitter the other day about how Jesse Plemons should and Adam Driver should play.
Yes, I was thinking about that the whole time. Like, I would kill to see that.
That would fucking rock. That we need that after the Marty Scorsese Grateful Dead movie.
But speaking of my weird
Anyways,
guys, I got some more weird guys.
Go ahead.
We're just gonna skip through all
Bring
my
more
records.
weird guys to the party.
Ethan P. Flynn, I briefly mentioned him. His new EP, Universal Deluge, is very, very good. I don't think it's as good as his debut, B-Sides and Rarities Volume 1. It's a cheeky title. It's actually like a proper album. It's very good. It's a little messier than that record. I don't think it's quite as strong, but there's some really good stuff here. Although I think, funny enough, he's someone who kind of has a more maximal style at times. But funny enough, I think my favorite track on this EP is Vegas Residency, which is mostly just like kind of a weird acoustic guitar track. But like it's not like I wouldn't describe it's like technically an acoustic song, but it doesn't feel that way for the production. Again, very similar to Steely Dan, like someone who comes up with weird guys and writes songs from their perspective. Very good record. Again, if you did not like the Black Country Euro record, or like, hey, you like that first BCNR album, and you want something more like it, but maybe more like beat driven, give this one a go. He's also written stuff for FK Twigs. Slow Tie's a big fan of him. I think he's got. We mentioned Florence. Okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal that information. Whatever. Even again, someone who is very good,
Just
but also doing a lot of.
If you're this late into the podcast, you're probably not a music business professional.
I'm probably going to split this into two parts, but even then, it's still going to be way late. Ethan Flynn, someone very, very good. Definitely, again, keep your eyes out on him. He's going to be doing some really cool stuff in the future. Definitely invest your stocks in Ethan P. Flynn. Two or three more. Bad House, 20 Mil Team. This is one I'm speaking for Natalie more than me on this one, even though I do love this record quite a bit. This is a really cool Boston band that Natalie and friend of the show, Alec Felder, introduced me to when this record came out. This is a super underrated record, probably is going to be the most underrated record of the year. It's a fucking excellent indie rock, indie pop album with some R&B influences. It's sort of like, hey, what if Spotify Core was like actually a really great, good genre? Like, what if someone did that, but like actually made it fucking weird and cool? Seriously, this one, again, give this one a fucking go. For me, this feels like this album. It feels like this is the music that Crumb should have been making after their first EP. Like it feels like they should have gone this direction. Yeah, excellent. Caroline, self-titled. This is what the Black Country New album should have been. A very excellent post-rock record, although there's one that Jackie prefers in this kind of genre.
I have a different this is what the Black
Country New album
should have been.
Talk about deathcrash.
This has been my band that I've been pushing up a hill for a little bit because I listened to one of their earliest singles that was up on streaming and I was like, yo, these guys sound like Hood. There are more English bands I can obsess over that do this exact mix of like slowcore and post rock. But the Deathcrash EP that was actually an album because it's like 43 minutes long because all their songs are long. But the thing that they put out last year, which I believe is called They Thought My Windows Were Stars, that EP is incredible, but that's like more straightforward post rock. It kind of sounds like what if Have a Nice Life did a whole album that was kind of softer and post rocky. But this album, I think, it's really long. The new album, it's called Return. It's their debut album. But when the singles started coming out for this, I was like, oh boy, here we go. Here they're about to do it. And the whole album is incredible. But like this album does so much in the way that it has these really slow building songs with these really ambitious structures. But like unlike the Caroline album, which doesn't really ever like ratchet the intensity all the way up from these really slow sparse sections. Like the great thing about this album is it goes from these really slow, really drawn out, really whispery sections that are like as kind of timid and spacey as it gets, and then they'll slam into really fucking hard riffs. There's a part at the end of the first song that sounds like a brand new song or something. Like it just picks up momentum out of nowhere. And there are a lot of really great moments on this record that do that. I think that I have this whole theory about this album where I think a lot of the song titles on this album are plays on bands that they are inspired by. So there's a song called Wrestle with Jimmy on this album. There's a song called American Metal, which is the song on the album that sounds the most like American football. It's like kind of noodly, emo-y. And so like there are a lot of the, and then there's also a song called The Low Anthem on here, and they sound a lot like Low as well. So like they're pulling from a lot of different interesting influences that are all like super duper up my alley. And I think this record is like my favorite post-rock album I've heard all year easily. Probably my favorite post-rock album I've heard in a really fucking long time. Like, I'm not someone who loves everything post-rock. Like, I've fallen off of the recent Godspeed albums, and like, it's not always my bag, but when it's hitting like this, when slowcore is hitting like this, when it's all like coming together, it's incredible. My favorite song on the album is Metro One, which has this great spoken word interlude over it where the guy talks for a while. It's just really great. This album is incredible. You should listen to it. You should check out deathcrash. If any of that sounds remotely like your sort of thing, they're a great new band. I have bought all the stock. You can't have any. I bought it all, but I'm investing big time.
They're gonna dilute your. So what were Jackie's shares diluted to? 0.015%.
No.
Okay, so
I'm done. By the way, I'm done with my album.
I got it again. I let a Jackie interlude go through, but the interlude is longer than my songs. I don't have much more. Again, this was a big song year so far for me. There's some great songs that have come out
I
so
want to
far
do a similar thing.
this year. I'm gonna just I have a playlist. I'll probably post it in the description of this episode if you want to. Matty Goodsongs. It's the place where I put my good songs. Singles wise, stuff that's really good, or like even I'm gonna Cheek Face feature singer came out late last year. Gonna count it. It's a great single. Honey Glaze, cool again. Speedy Wonderground Heads, Gremlin Mindset Heads. Keep your eyes on that. New record produced by Dan Carey. It's very good. Fucking Orlando Weeks, who's like one of those guys that was in a indie landfill band or whatever. It's a song called Bigger. It's very good. I'm gonna try to speed run some. My idea, Crime FR. Record comes out. We'll talk about the record next when we do our Q2 podcast. Very good single. The new Palm Poco EP is very good. New Arlo Park song is very good. Chris Farron put out a soundtrack record for a movie that doesn't exist. I saw him live. Great live. We had Shabir on twice. Heterosexuality, very good record. Check it out. Edom Claw, get your stocks in this band. Great indie rock out of the Pacific Northwest, 2002. Great track. Ice Age put out a fucking Abra cover and it fucking rocks. It's the best song they've ever made, maybe.
Fucking rocks. That's on this. Slow your roll. The thing about the Abra cover is that it should be embarrassing. It should be a nightmare, and it isn't a nightmare. It's actually pretty cool, but we're also giving them too much credit for it. It's also
you say that. I think it's a great cover, and I think again, Ice Age should make more music like it. Shouts out to the Endless Scroll Heads, Pressure Cooker, Daisy, Military Gun. Very good song. The new Alex G song for the We're All Going to the World's Fair soundtrack is one of the best songs he maybe has made yet.
Jane Sean Brown's movie. Good.
I'm gonna see it hopefully later this month when it hits theaters. Phony. Shouts out to my good friend Neil, aka Phony. New single Caroline is very good. He's got a record coming out later this year. That's one of my favorite albums of 2022 so far. Soccer Mommy, Shotgun, her best song since Your Dog. Great track. Jordana. Sure. Jordana single's been very good. Their record's gonna be very good. We'll talk about it I'll probably mention it on Q2. Bartalia, great band on Dean Blunt's label. I think a lot of stuff that Dean Blunt has put out through his own label has been kind of but Bartalia is one of the good ones. They had a great record last year. This new song Banks is very, very good. Dean Blunt also great live show. I saw him last month. He was fucking awesome. The Sunflower Bean record, I heard in advance of it, so I only mentioned one song, Roll the Dice. Fuck, this record, I was not expecting this album to be very good, but I will talk about it in Q2. Cola, so excited. Great single. Very excited for that record. We'll have a lot more to say in a couple months. And that's it. That's my song so far.
I will get my spiel out now. It will be really quick. First albums, EP stuff. Then
Caleb on 2. That record's pretty good. It's Reward 2. It's fine.
Dory. It'll be quick. Things I want to shout out. CMAT, that's CMAT. Their album, If My Wife Knew She'd Leave Me, very good. Highly recommend it for the alt country heads out there. It's just pleasant tunes. There's a song about trying to get Peter Bogdanovich to leave his wife. That rocks. Superchunk, Wild Loneliness, one of America's most consistent indie rock bands. You simply must respect the craft. Love them. Another merge release, Abibio Sound Machine, Electricity. They have an album produced by Hot Chip. If you are like Hot Chip Head or anything adjacent to that, you got to check that one out. It's got some rippers on it. Cat Power covers.
Yes.
What is there to say? Another good covers record that we didn't talk about. Aiko Ishibashi for McCoy. If you like the Drive My Car soundtrack, she did that. She did this too. It's like an experimental Baroque pop sound piece. It's like 35 minutes long, and it's dedicated to Jack McCoy from Law and Order. Very, very, very cool stuff. Carson McCone, Still Life, yet another Merge Records release. Like, hey, can you tell I'm like a fangirl for this label or what? Riley Walker, So Certain EP, really, really good. That's just, Riley Walker's a good dad rock guy. Love him. And okay, on to my singles. So real quick, some singles I want to shout out that I didn't get to. The Smile, You'll Never Work in Television Again.
We will be talking about that. We will be talking about that.
Yeah, but like that song in particular got me. Spoon's cover of Held by Smog off their new record. I'm not a Spoon guy, but that song, oh my God, it's a ripper. Like, they put their whole ass into that one. Very, very impressive. I already mentioned Death Don't Wait. That's a pretty great song. Gospel, SRO. If you are a freak for like proggy kind of metal hardcore stuff, like definitely check them out. Their album The Moon is a Dead World from like 2003. They put out a new song called SRO, which is their first in like 15 plus years. Like, and it fucking rips. Like if you're I honestly, like, even if you're not a metalhead, like if you're like a Proto Martyr guy, I'd recommend checking out that song because like it reminds me of that, but with like Steely Dan ass keyboard solos.
Hell yeah.
You gotta check it out. Braxton Falcon, Step by Step featuring Panda Bear, just a good Panda Bear track. Like he occasionally will just throw in a song in there. I'm just like, this is really good. Everything, Teletype. I only mentioned this because that record, I'm gonna fucking hate that record, but that single's pretty solid. And then my song of the year so far, Names by Home Is Where. Good minute-long Scrams track. I'm a Woman, Suck My Dick is lyric of the year.
Hell fucking yeah, baby.
Just you gotta love it, folks. A lot of good songs this year, a lot of good albums this year. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
I unfortunately, I'm not going to name all of them, but I literally just need to name more albums because there were anywhere from 5 to like 8 more that I didn't even put on the list because like there just wasn't room. Yeah. However, I would like to shout some of them out because they're really good. The new Yule album, Glitch Princess, which got Best New Music, is fucking awesome. Very good non-binary person that thinks they're a robot music. My Dream Fever is the new side project of what's the Parannoul. It's Parannoul's new side project. It's like ambient music. It sounds like Parannoul making a Miyazaki soundtrack. It's incredible. Max Cooper, new kind of IDM album, I would describe it as, even though that genre name sucks. Very good stuff there. The new Earl album is great. I think we should shout that out real quickly. And while I was talking about rap music, we should also shout out Babytron, who put out a mixtape called Megatron. I can't believe it took that long for him to put that 2 and 2 together, being from Detroit, but we finally have a Babytron album called Megatron, and it's exactly as good as every Babytron album is, which is very... and then also one last shout out to an album called Days and Nights by the band Sooner. This was a CJ, friend of the podcast, CJ recommendation. He basically said, yo, this band sounds like, The Sundays is who they sound a lot like. Like, we were talking about them in the 90s. They sound like The Sundays. They sound like Belly. If that kind of like early to mid 90s indie rock, that's kind of jangly, a little bit folky, a little bit indie rock. It's a really, really nice, pleasant album that I enjoy a lot and is a small band. They're called Sooner. The album is called Days and Nights. It has a very nice album cover. I definitely recommend checking that out. If you made it this far into the podcast, I think you'll like that album.
Mm-hmm. And that is it, folks.
That's it. There's the Empath album. There's a couple other things.
Empath,
whatever.
Yeah, this is gonna be a 2-part episode. So because it's too long, we're gonna do it. I'll just split this in 2 parts somehow. Anyways, thank you for listening. We hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Again, this has been a very good year for music so far, and it's only going to get better because, again, some of my favorite albums of the year so far are Q2 releases that are not out yet. So I will have a lot more to say on the next guy.
I'm hoping the pace slows down just a little, but like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, just speaking again from my job in college radio, this is like we're working a number of records where like these would have been number 1 in the college charts if it came out at a different time. Like it's a very like busy stack season. Again, it's a lot of, I think it's a lot of bands like either made stuff during the pandemic or stuff that got delayed, and then like, okay, now they can properly.
Yeah, it's happening in TV too. There was a log jam that happened because of the pandemic, and it's like it's like now the entire creative industries are busting after edging for months on end.
Certainly an analogy to choose.
Certainly an analogy to choose. Thank you for listening to the Indieheads podcast. Thank you for listening to me with my little horse voice, little horse jeans.
Yeah. All right, folks. We will see you all. Let's see. Next week. Let's see. What do we have? Next week. Originally, we were supposed to do Dave Grohl playlist on something else, but the person who has made that playlist wants to swap it out with something else. So most likely next week instead, we might end up doing
youth group
songs.
Actually, that might be a problem.
Songs next, or should we do heavy bass distributors next?
Fuck.
Maybe we should do heavy bass next because
I should warn you with both of those. Like Lily is preparing for a recording session Saturday, so like.
Gotcha. All right,
we'll figure it out. Anyways, next week we've got a couple. Nevertheless, next few weeks.
If you like Flex, whatever is the second half of his artist. Flex Caliber. If you like Flex Caliber from the Maroon 5's number 1, which by the way, I don't think we've done a podcast since the stream. Thank you so much.
No, we've done two. We've done two.
$2,000. You freaks raised $2,000.
Shout out to you.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah.
100 interesting videos.
Yeah, we should have. Yeah, we didn't say anything during the last week's episode, but again, seriously, thank you so much for everybody who tuned in the stream. $2,000 to Dallas Hope Charities. Seriously, fucking. We didn't think we get that much money.
You are champions. You
guys are all champions.
And then we got a real charity to send out a tweet where they said,
100 interesting videos.
Thank you to the Indieheads podcast who raised $2,000. We're watching 100 interesting videos that can be found online. And I was like, that isn't wrong. That's not inaccurate.
That is like the most technical language you can use.
I just love that there's someone who has made it their job to work for Dallas Hope Charities, whoever it is that runs their social media account, like someone who has committed their life to helping others in a really tangible, meaningful way. And the fact that person had to check in and see what we were doing, raising money for their team.
I hope they tuned in during
they tuned in and watched some of it because that was a lot of fun. And I'm very, very happy that we were able to do that for that charity. And if you missed the stream, go donate to some other trans people who need your money. Yeah, there's a lot of us.
There's a lot.
Just go look for a fucking good cause. It's not hard. You can.
And also, the stream replay is up on the channel. You can watch. You know, it's some again.
You can watch the replay. You can watch the replay of AJ. Of AJ realizing that there was a 4th Brooke and Jeffrey video and losing it completely.
Goodbye, Jeffrey.
Hello, I just want to say 100 interesting videos that could be found on the internet, and 1/25 of them are young Jeffrey.
Yes.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
The fact that I can make a fraction out of that scares me.
Yeah, we got a bunch of Dave Grohl playlist episodes coming up. Those are pretty much we have a lot to catch up on after Maroon 5. And then we have we've already mentioned Best New Pod. Probably gonna start in May.
Best New Pod.
Probably gonna start sometime in May.
Yes,
probably gonna start sometime
tentatively.
Yeah, sometime in May. We'll have more official rollouts, which we kind of the three
in the words of Justin Timberlake, it's gonna be May.
It's gonna be May. Literally, the 3 people you're listening to right now are going to be the host of Best New Pod. We're just going to figure out schedules and editing. We just got to figure out a couple logistical things, and then
all of your favorites are going to be on. We're going to try to have a lot of guests. It's going to be a very fun series. I think it's just if you're listening to this part of the podcast, you're probably a regular listener. I'm really excited about it because I think it's like the perfect balance between getting back into slightly seriously discussing indie music while also indulging all of our bullshit. Yeah. Like, it's going to be very fun. We're going to remember some guys. We're going to remember so many guys.
Just to ensure the bullshit.
So many guys.
There are going to be so many guys that we're going to remember because it's not just going to be great music. A lot of these songs are like, yes, we're going to be talking about some of the best and most important songs of the 2010s. We're also going to talk about some guys that Pitchfork tried to make happen that never happened. we're also going to talk about some, hey, remember him?
Remember them?
Remember this?
Yeah. It's going to be a very fun series. We'll have more details hopefully soon on when it's happening.
It will be so good, folks, and you will get to see a real journey.
Exactly. But yeah, that is it for this episode. Hopefully you all enjoyed. We will see you all very soon because, again, this will be a two-parter. So you'll see us again on Sunday, once again, for your Patreon supporter, and for everybody else Tuesday. So yeah, bye-bye, everybody, and have a good one. Peace out.
Bye.